Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use your favorite restaurant sandwich recipes as inspiration for making freezer sandwiches. I'm Rebecca from StockingMyPantry.com. Here's what I'll cover in this video. I'm going to talk about the benefits of making restaurant sandwiches at home that you can stick in the freezer. I'm going to share with you basic principles for using your favorite restaurant sandwiches as inspiration for freezer sandwiches. I'm going to give you tips for how to prepare the sandwiches so you can stick them in the freezer and they won't be soggy when you serve them. I'll go over how to heat the sandwiches from either thawed or frozen so that they'll be nice and toasty when you're ready to eat them. And finally, I'm going to demonstrate all of these principles by making a kind of a knockoff of an Arby's beef and cheddar sandwich. So let's get right into it. Okay, first let's talk about the benefits of making these freezer sandwiches. I'm going to put them into 3 C's. It just kind of worked out that way. So the first C is cost. It cost me roughly $2, $1.75 to $2 to make each sandwich, and the same sandwich is around $6.50, $7 at Arby's. So you may as well say it's roughly the third of the cost or less of one sandwich that you would get at the restaurant. The next is convenience. Since you make these ahead of time and stick them into the freezer, you can eat them anytime that you want. No need to go through the drive-thru or do anything else to be able to have a sandwich. If you're in the mood for one, pull it out of the freezer, stick it in the oven, and you can eat it without leaving home. The third C is customization. You can use the restaurant sandwich as inspiration, but then change things up a little bit. So for example, you might use a different type of cheese or a different type of sauce on the sandwich. And along the lines of the customization option is that if you make a few different types of sandwiches and have them in your freezer, then when it's time to eat, each member of your family can pick what type of sandwich they would want. So for example, one person might want the Arby's beef and cheddar, another might want the Subway Italian BMT, and a third person might want Panera's, I forget what it's called, but like a turkey bacon sandwich. So that gives you some flexibility as well to keep everybody in your family happy. The third thing that I'm going to cover are basic principles. So these principles will make it possible for you to take any sandwich and kind of make it your own, and again, use it, put it in the freezer without having any problem with it down the road when you're ready to eat it. Okay, so the first thing to look at is the bread. If you go on a restaurant website, it's going to talk about what type of bread is used on the sandwich. So as an example, with the Arby's beef and cheddar, they use onion rolls. So I chose Oro wheat onion rolls for the sandwich because it's what most closely mirrored what's on the website. You might see that a restaurant uses pretzel buns or hoagie roll or that type of thing. So basically use that as inspiration. You don't have to stick with it exactly, but at least it gives you an idea of what type of bread to use. Also, there are a couple of ways to make it a little less expensive. As an example, if a sandwich calls for a hoagie roll, if that's what they use in the restaurant, you could take a loaf of French bread and make a bigger sandwich and cut it into parts and then individually wrap those in foil. And I don't know what prices are like where you're at, but if I buy a bag of sandwich rolls at the grocery store, usually they're $4 or more, and a loaf of French bread is $1.25. So, but yet it would still make a very good sandwich. So that's always an option. Okay, the next thing is when you look at the website description of the sandwich, it's going to tell you what type of meat and cheese is on the sandwich. So as an example, on the Arby's beef and cheddar, you have roast beef and you have a cheese sauce. Now you might end up wanting to change things up a little bit. So for example, I didn't think a cheese sauce would work well in a freezer sandwich because it would make the bread all soggy, and I just don't think it would be good. So I came up with an alternative cheese to use, and I'll share that with you when I show you how to make that specific sandwich. Okay, the next is usually there's some type of spread. So there might be ranch dressing or, you know, whatever. I can't think of what other, maybe mayonnaise or mustard, ketchup. In this case, barbecue sauce is what Arby sandwiches are known for. So I'm using barbecue sauce. Now, I want to talk about veggies and other extras. So we're talking about, you know, the lettuce, the tomatoes, onions, pepperoncini, guacamole. Leave those things off in the freezer version because they tend to get limp and soggy and they'll just wreck your sandwich. And so what you want to do is leave those off, and then when it's time to actually make the sandwich, that's when you'll put those things on. So for example, a type of sandwich I haven't made yet, but I'm planning to, is Subway has a turkey, bacon, ranch with guacamole sandwich. And that sounds really good. It's one of my husband's favorites. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave off the guacamole, and guacamole, you can buy it at the grocery store in these little, it's kind of like a box that has 6, I think, different little containers, and they usually last pretty long. And so what I would do is I would just have some of those in the fridge, and then if I want to make that sandwich, heat it up, and then before serving, put on the guacamole. And if I wanted other vegetables, I would put them on at that time. Okay, let's move on to the next step, which is a demonstration. Now I'm going to show you how I make something similar to an Arby's beef and cheddar sandwich. Okay, now let's go ahead and put these sandwiches together. Now I've actually already made quite a few and stuck them in the freezer, and I'm just going to demonstrate with 3 sandwiches because, I mean, once I show you one, then you'll know how to do it, okay? So you can see here that I have 3 different onion rolls. I also have a 7-ounce container of thin sliced roast beef. This is great value. You can buy from the deli or wherever you want, whatever brand you want. I also have just some great value honey barbecue sauce. With the barbecue sauce, use whatever type you want. If you want one that's more spicy or whatever, but we tend to like this honey barbecue, so that's what I chose. And then finally, since I wasn't going to do a cheese sauce, but I wanted it to be kind of gooey like a Arby's beef and cheddar sandwich would be, I am using this processed American cheese, and I'm putting 2 slices on each sandwich. Okay, so let's go ahead and put it together. Okay. All right, so you see I just separated them out. And I'm going to put, from experience, having just made some of these, I know that I want about 7 slices of the roast beef on each sandwich. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put, there's 4. And there's 7. And I'm going to do the same thing on each of the other sandwiches. And I think, at least in my experience with this, one sandwich gets a bonus slice. So, because I think there's 22 slices or something. And now I'm talking and I've kind of lost track here. But anyway, here's what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do this one. 1, 2, 3. And you don't have to be this precise if you don't want. Okay, and I'm going to put these on this one. So I think this one's going to get the bonus 8th slice. Okay, next is you want to put a blob, I'll just call it that, of barbecue sauce on the center of each sandwich. I would say this is roughly a tablespoon, but you don't need to measure it. Now you want to put on enough that it's going to be pretty saucy, but not so much that it's going to end up making a big mess. And I just realized that I had, when I made the other ones, I put the knife away, so I'm going to grab a knife and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of spread it around. I don't want to get it too close to the edge because I'm trying to avoid, I was a little more generous with this one. I'm trying to avoid the barbecue sauce touching the bread. And in fact, that's why I'm putting it on the meat instead of on the bread, because I don't want the bread to get soggy. So I'm putting it on the meat instead of on the bread. And you'll see that when I put on the cheese, whoops, it's kind of ripping up. This was sitting out for a bit, and I think it's getting kind of melty because it's warm. So normally this wouldn't be like this. It would be a little neater. So hopefully the other slices aren't like that. So that's one tip that I just discovered, is you want to keep them in the fridge until you're about ready to use them. Okay, so I'm putting a slice on, and then I'm putting the second one a little bit diagonal. It doesn't matter, but it gives a little better coverage that way. So do the same thing with each of the other sandwiches. Okay, and then of course put the top on. And you now have, I have 3 sandwiches. It's super easy to make several. So now I'm going to get into how to prepare them to put them in the freezer. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to individually wrap them in foil. So I like to put them face down, and then I just bring the foil up. And then I fold it in from the sides. Okay, so there's the first one, and I'm going to do the same thing with the next 2. Now it looks like on this one, I cut the foil a little bit too small. I'm going to see how it covers when I fold it. If it's not covered all the way, I'll rip off another piece of foil and wrap it, because you don't want to have any of the bread exposed. Okay, thankfully by the time I wrapped it up, it did cover everything, and so that's fine. If it didn't, I'd just rip off another piece of foil and wrap it like that. So now I have here a 1-gallon size freezer bag. Okay, so in terms of how many sandwiches you can fit in one freezer bag, a lot of that's going to just depend on the size of the sandwiches. So these buns are pretty large. And so I am just putting 3 in. I could actually fit 4, as you'll see, but there's 3 people in my family, and so I'm just putting 3 in each Ziploc bag. And then you just want to close it, squeeze out any air. And then you can also label it. You can label it actually before you put the sandwiches in. Say what date that you made them, what's in the bag, and so on. So, and then I'm going to stick these in the freezer. Now, you could, even if you're a single person, you could put several sandwiches, however many fit, in one bag and take them out one at a time. So, no need to waste bags, but I'm just finding it easy to put 3 in a bag since there's 3 of us. Okay, so now let's talk about how to heat these sandwiches up when you're going to eat them. I have found that heating them in the oven works out best, because then they're not going to be soggy. You're going to end up actually with a little bit of a you're actually going to end up with a little bit of crispness. Why is that so hard to say? You're actually going to end up with a bit of crispness and kind of like as if you had ordered it toasted from a restaurant when you bake it. You can microwave it if you want to, but then it might end up being a little bit soggy and, you know, the bread a lot softer and squishier. So that's kind of up to you. What I ended up doing with these is I made these just the other day, and I baked them for 35 minutes at 350 degrees. And the cheese was melted, the bread was nice and toasty. but the meat was still a little bit cold. So at that point, I just popped it in the microwave. I had cut them in half to check and see if they were warm all the way through, so I could feel that they were a little bit cold still in the middle. So at that point, I just put them on a plate, popped them in the microwave for 30 seconds, and that was enough to finish the job. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I would love it if you would share with me what type of sandwich you would maybe want to make, what your favorite sandwiches from restaurants are, and how you've been inspired by this video to make some of your favorites at home. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you would like the video, and if you haven't already done so, if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.